I think that I've been thinking about this a little bit as we've been talking, trying to put it into words, but for me, you know, this storyline that we have every day is, you know, something that I've determined that really isn't really the truth or real. Except that when I go into it, it's real. But the clear self, you know, you back off and say, and you look at it and say, well, it's not totally real because it's changeable. Like when you're in your story, you figure this is the outcomes that have to be. This is my drama. This is the truth. This is real. That's why we get so uptight. But if you back off with your clear self, then you can say, well, there are lots of options here. This isn't necessarily the way it has to be. And you can kind of flip back and forth between your story. You go into it, you come out of it as the audience, go back into it as the player. And the more frequently, I think, to Sean's point, the more frequently that you can be in it and out it, in it, out it. But often if you wait for a half hour a day or when I'm all done the list, then I'll take my spiritual time. But if you can do that very quickly between your story watch, I think then you can kind of go through the day a lot more peaceful and probably more productive.
This is another good point, more productive. Because it appears like you're more productive when you're rushing around. True or false? When you're rushing around, that may well create personal and physical things that you have to deal with later. Okay? You try to push through and now you're rude to a few people. They might just remember that. Okay? The next time you try to do something, or even this time. Or you end up doing something twice or 3 times. Okay? Like you've seen when you're trying to rush out the door, how many times do you have to come back in the house? Find your key, find the thing, out the door again, and no, there's still this other thing.
Wait a time.
It's not actually that efficient, but if you ask people, there'll be a number of people who insist that that rushing around method is more productive. I think this is how they're built, this is what they see, let's just get her done. And other people, when they reflect on it, they think, you know, there are byproducts being produced that are certainly not in line with my intention about the day.
You're not having the rhythm. It's too forced and pushed and outward
Yeah.
that way.
And if you push on people, they'll either push back or sit down. You know, so if any of your missions have to do with other people, and you create negative waves or unpleasantness in the course of doing that, I don't know, that'll have consequences. It'll have immediate consequences, and it'll have larger consequences. So,
I think, sorry, when you get injured, say you hurt yourself, your storyline goes out the window, and your clear self kicks in and says, you got to deal with this injury.
Yeah.
Everything you wanted to do isn't possible right now.
Yeah.
You have to do this.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the only way that we stop. Because when you're running your to-do list, as long as you're one step out of the hospital, you're fine. Right? You'll deny yourself lunch. You won't even let yourself go to the bathroom. You'll try and force other people to do stuff. How come? Because we got to get it done. The weird thing is if you get it done and it all works out, the state you'll be in for a few seconds will resemble what your clear self is all the time. Right? If it all works out to your personality, you'll just, oh, that was great. I accomplished something. Well, if you had it in mind that you already started with that state and your goal was just not to lose it, maybe you could have carried some of that through the whole day.
I can feel the same way after buying something I don't need. Ah, I got it. Ah, yeah. This is
So I really
Oh.
need it.
Oh, there it goes.
Very quick. What about the conservation of energy throughout the more peaceful approach to getting your storyline accomplished.
Yeah, I think that's a big
Like,
one.
you can do more if you're calmer because your energy levels are more consistent. You're not
Yeah.
peaking and dropping.
And you're opened up more too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's even true about cars, right? Like, if you're at all concerned with your gas mileage, gunning it from stop sign to stop sign, or riding the brake and riding the gas, how effective is that? Right? So we already know everything. All this stuff we already know. But I don't know, something is pushing from within. And I call it storyline. Right? Just like somebody inside that storyline pushing to be somewhere other than where you are. To get to somewhere other than where you are.
And we're often not even aware of the storyline.
Well, this is the other part.
It's just a drive.
Or we assign reasons that it may not be the reasons. So now I was helping a friend out decorating her house, which to me is fun, and this is why I garage sale. So that we can do these little art installations, and all of a sudden in an hour somebody's got a groovy room that they didn't have before, and it's the bed sheets, and it's the music, and it's the rug, and this is fun for me. But she started to feel really uneasy, right? Because she's not used to somebody helping. And now the reasons she started to give, they didn't match what was happening. Oh, this is taking up so much of your time, and I'm not thinking that. So now she's
Did she
giving.
put that into your head then?
What's that?
How did you think when
Well,
she
I recognize that no, she's putting reasons to a story, to an emotional story, and that I was aware the reasons didn't fit. This
So
is what
you didn't take them in then or absorb them? It didn't change what you were doing?
it triggered something in me.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking, well, she doesn't want me in her house. Because she's uneasy, and I don't want to make somebody uneasy. I didn't come to make her uneasy. Or if I would have had that intention, I would have had other ways to make her uneasy. So
That
yeah,
was
it
probably not
triggered me
going
as
on.
well, but I was aware that there was a falsity on both sides. Because the reasons she's giving, these aren't the reasons. Because I'm not thinking, oh, it's taking up my time. I'm not thinking, oh, she's thinking, oh, you're giving me your last set of speakers. And anybody who knows him, he knows that no, he's got 20 sets of speakers. Because he garage sales like a fanatic all summer. Right? Simultaneously, I knew that, okay, my feelings got hurt because I felt like, oh great, she doesn't want me in her house. I don't need to be here if she doesn't want me here. But I also know that this isn't what she's saying. So what I see happens often, it's not like I'm saying, oh yes, you should all be here because I'm here all the time. That's not what happens. But I'm describing that this part has a very good view of this part. And it can help you suss out when things are going on, what's going on. Because this one's primary role is observation. So, in other words, so now two people. So now I saw her get triggered because she's not used to people helping her. And then I saw that what she said or responded to that triggered me. But some part of me is here seeing these two things. And this one, it doesn't hate her for being that way, and it doesn't hate me for also being my way. And over time, this one will move from observation, which is where it starts, to then actually kind of whispering in this one's ear, first of all, me. No, that's not what she's saying. She's not saying she doesn't want you in her house. She's just being triggered by old stuff. And this is the kind of dialogue that goes on between your personality and your clear part.
What happens if she really thought she was taking your time? That what she said is what she meant.
Well,
and you interpret it differently.
That can happen too. This is why the next day I checked with her. Not that moment, but the next day. And I explained to her that, you know what, I actually do have a lot of time now because my classes are over and there's this gap between now and when I leave for Guatemala. I actually do have time. So that since I have time, and she recognized that, yeah, she said, yeah, I was sort of thinking like about herself that I don't have much time. She doesn't have much time. And she doesn't have 20 sets of speakers. So to her, to take time to go to give somebody her last set of speakers, that's a big sacrifice. So now in her mind, she projected that on me as if, oh, he must be making some great sacrifice for me, where I'm not thinking that. It's like a little art installation. Oh, there, in an hour we got a groovy room. How fun is that? Take a picture. But these things, they don't necessarily work themselves out immediately. Right? Because true or false, once you get triggered, you may be triggered for a while.
True.
I don't know, it doesn't go away in a second. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you can even stay from being triggered. But a lot of times what's happening is you're dealing with people triggered, and one of those people who's triggered is you. Since this one's primary role is observation, first of all, this one is not deluded about what it sees, although it may check information later. Because this is by its nature neutral. And it can see both sides. Or like Duke says, it can see other possibilities than the one that one of these is stuck in. But it's not going to necessarily switch in a second. At least this one's observations can modify what's happening here. So that maybe, say if you're in conflict with somebody, maybe the thing that you're thinking doesn't make it to your lips. Maybe there's enough energy coming from here and enough sense of intention to not make it worse. I like that line. If you don't like what I'm saying, you'd really hate what I'm thinking. Right? But sometimes if you can not make it worse, that's the best you can do. Some of those Dalai Lama quotes and that, it's sort of like, look, if you can't help, at least try to do no harm. Yeah, at least try not to make it worse. So sometimes that's the best case scenario is you just try to not make it worse. And this one has the power to exert some kind of force on your personality, which out of its sense of reactiveness may lean towards making it worse.